Hi everyone, and welcome to the pre-race briefing for Stubborn Fool 2022. My name is Paula Waite. I'm the event director for 180 Adventure, also the course designer for this year's course. Thank you all for choosing to race the Stubborn Fool this year. We're looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. A couple other thank yous. A big thank you to the Black River State Forest crew, who is awesome in helping us get it permitted and making sure that we have everything that we need for race day. And then a big thank you to the volunteers. These events cannot happen without the volunteer crew that you'll see out on the course on Saturday. So volunteers, Julie helped with vetting the course and also setting. Jess and her son Miles will be helping out, along with Kathy and Leslie. So please be sure to give them a big thank you when you see them. They're giving up their weekend for all of you, so make sure you pass along your thanks. So a few logistics about Saturday morning. My plan right now, weather permitting, is that the check-in will be outside, contactless. So there's really nothing that we need to receive from you. You just need to get your race packets from us. So we'll have those laid outside in team number order. So you'll want to make sure that you know your team number. Team numbers along with team names, configuration, all that information was posted out on the website. There's also a link to it in the first race update. So make sure you know your team number when you show up on race morning. Just one team member needs to come up and get your race packet. So that'll be a manila envelope that has race instructions in it, your e-punch finger stick, wristbands, team numbers, and a few supplementary maps. Your goodie bag, orange goodie bag, also has your team number on it, and that will have your shirts in it and a few other goodies for you. And then one rolled up map, so the 24x36 MyTopo waterproof map. So those are the three things you'll be picking up on race morning. And then you can go off and do your planning. Something with regard to planning, there are limited tables at headquarters or at that check-in area. So for those of you who like to kind of stretch out, put your map out and be able to take a good look at that, you might want to consider bringing a small table or some other larger surface that you can all gather around to take a look at that map and do some of your planning. There is water at HQ. There's a water pump there. There's not running water per se. There are pit toilets there as well. In terms of the start, we'll do a staggered start. So what that means is between 10 and 10:30, your team can queue up, go through the e-punch process to get started, and be off and on your way. So because we're not all starting at the exact same time and we're kind of staggering you out the door, so to speak, make sure that you keep track of what time that you started so that you know when your 6-hour time is up in terms of the race length. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? I guess race format. So the race again is 6 hours. There are a total of 33 CPs on the course. If you were to go directly point to point, roughly 10 miles of land nav and about 25 on the bike. Now that depends on route choice, right? And that's to clear the course. So I think it's important to be really clear that I've got a lot of points out there. I expect a couple teams will probably clear the course, but by and large, most teams will not clear it, clearing it meaning getting all of the control points. So you'll need to think about how you want to spend your day over those 6 hours. So my goal is to keep you busy for 6 hours or darn close to it. Out in the woods having your adventure. So there will be points to obtain on foot and on bike, and I'll talk more about that. I'm going to kind of walk through last year's course a little bit to just kind of clear up a few points of confusion and maybe give a few tips about how you might think about organizing your day. There is a lot of information in the rules that were sent out already because there's a lot to read sometimes on race morning, so I wanted to get you as much as I could so that you could consume that ahead of time. So make sure you read through the rules and understand everything there. Even if you've raced with us before, sometimes those rules change a little bit, so make sure you read through them and understand them. Be sure to watch the other videos that are out. There's one about e-punching. There is one about all punches, so make sure you watch those and carefully read the race updates. I'd also recommend reading through the race rules from last year's Stubborn Fool. Those are available out on the website. Format will be real similar to this year, so that's a good way to kind of get familiar with how I organize the instructions for the race, particularly if you haven't raced with us before. Let's see, a couple things about the maps. So in some cases, the way that the trails were mapped onto the maps, like the GPS data for some snowmobile and ATV trails, for example, sometimes show as a straight line between points, and really it's maybe a little bit curvy, so just be aware that some of that is not perfect. the topography on the map, that's good, right? So make sure that you're using that and watching your distances as well. There is one location that I want to make sure I call your attention to, and that is around CP2. So you want to make notes of this, and I'll remind you again in the pre-race briefing at 9:45. I'll have a quick chat before you all get started. But around CP2, there is purple ski trail on the map, and that is drawn in just a little bit northwest of where it actually is. And the actual trail is drawn as a black line on the topo map. But when I put in the ski trail, it came out just a little bit northwest. So that's important near CP2 because if you look at the ski trail, it looks like that CP is right off the corner of the trail. So for that particular CP, take a look at the black trail, and that is, you'll see that the CP is not off the corner of the trail. So take a look at the topography there. So again, that was CP2. Just be careful about the trail there. And that one's pretty close to the trail. You can almost see it from the trail. So don't panic about that. And again, I'll remind you about that one on Saturday morning. I just don't want to throw anybody off by thinking, oh, I just head south off this corner or whatever. Let's see, anything else I want to mention? If you have questions, as I mentioned, or I think I mentioned, email me at info@180adventure.com. I will answer those questions in the FAQs on the website. So make sure that you're paying attention to the FAQs because that's where I'll be sharing back information so that everybody's receiving the same information to keep things fair. Quick message for new teams and beginner teams. My number one tip for race morning for you is to make sure that you show up ahead of time and show up what I like to call race ready. So that means your bike tires are inflated, the proper pressure, you're set to go, you've got water in your bottles or your bladder, whatever you're using. Make sure that you're race ready at 8:30 so that when you receive your maps and your course instructions, you can spend the time from that moment up until the race start planning your day, looking at the maps, understanding the course instructions, and getting any questions answered. We do have a couple brand new teams. This is your first race. We're really excited to have you. If, as you're looking through all of this information, you have questions on race morning, please ask. Julie and I both are very happy to come and work with you one-on-one a little bit and talk through your day. And if you've got questions, make sure that you're not feeling completely overwhelmed. There'll be plenty of time for maybe feeling overwhelmed when you're out during the race. So before the race, we don't want you feeling that way. So ask for help if you need it. All right, with that, I want to just show race course from last year and talk through a few questions that came up. And so hopefully that will help you as you're planning your race on Saturday. So on the off chance that you haven't been out here yet, we have a link for race archives and then sample race instructions and maps. So the one that I recommend reviewing before race day is the 2021 Stubborn Fool course instructions and the course maps. This is similar to what you'll get on Saturday. The race instructions for last year, very similar, but don't assume that something was in the instructions last year is definitely going to be in the instructions this year. Some things might be similar, some things might be different, but this gives you an idea of the format at least. So last year's race had paddling in it, so that's a little bit different this year. But something that's similar is that the idea is to obtain as many CPs as you can in the least amount of time. There will be a requirement to remain full course that you will need to get one bike CP and one land nav CP. So those are labeled as BP for bike points and CP for land nav. So land nav meaning you obtain them on foot. BP, that can be obtained either on foot or on bike. And that's something that sometimes confuses folks. So I wanted to just show the course map from last year. So here you can see we've got CPs to be obtained on foot and BPs, bike points, generally going to be obtained by bike, but they don't have to be. They could be obtained on foot. And that might mean maybe the control is set off a little bit in the woods and you're going to have to get off your bike in order to get that. Or it could mean that you would choose to go to that CP on foot rather than by bike. So in this case, here's our race start. These were all land nav points, right? And so a team could get to say CP9, CP11, they're like, oh man, there's a bike point right there. Rather than going all the way back, getting on our bikes and coming up here, maybe what a team would choose to do is just do that on foot. And so just keep that in mind. It doesn't mean that you have to get a bike point using your bicycle. Some of them, it's only going to make sense to get it on the bike, right? Because they're far away, for example, some of these bike points from last year. The other thing that might cause a little bit of confusion is the bike boundary. So in this case last year, we had a boundary drawn, that's this red line, and that meant that bikes were not allowed inside of this area. So the trail system was off limits for biking. However, you could choose to bike outside of the bike area to get close to get some of these other points. So that's something that language in the instructions is sometimes confusing, and I think I maybe need to work on the language around that. So that's why I'm explaining it. So let's say that your team wants to go and head for CP 15 and 16, some of these points up here. You could do that on foot, right? Navigating through this area and coming up here on foot. That's one option. Another option could be that you ride your bike outside of the bike boundary and then leave your bike outside of the bike boundary and go in on foot to get the CPs. So remember, CPs obtained on foot, but you could use your bike to get close. So that's one of the things that you'll want to strategize a bit on race morning. If you see this format and there's some CPs inside of an area where you can't have bikes, you could drop your bike, go in and get the CP, and then come back out. So you want to be thoughtful about, if you're going to do that, where you're going to leave your bike, and then remember where you left it. So I think hopefully that explains that. Again, for beginner teams, think about how you're going to spend the day. If there's, some lone bike point really far away, you may not want to go get that point. It's going to be more expensive in terms of your time and energy to go get some of those. So some of those outlying points, we might even call those pro points, right? Those are the points for the teams that are going to attempt to clear the course. So don't feel like just because bike point number 1 is maybe down here somewhere that you have to get it. Remember, you can do these in any order for this race. Other races might have different instructions, but for this particular race, you can obtain them in any order. So I hope that helps that become clear. If you have questions about that type of thing when you get your race instructions and your maps on Saturday, please ask. One last thing, celebrating at the finish line. We're looking forward to hearing your race stories after the race. Remember that we are having a pizza buffet from the Fire Truck Pizza. And we'll also have beverages for you at the finish line, both beer and soft drinks. So we're looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. Take care until then.